All right, let's dive in. We're taking on Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale today, but with a bit of a
Yeah,
twist.
definitely a twist.
We're bringing in Google's AI notebook LM to help us out. Think of it like having a superpowered study buddy.
Yeah. One who can pull out those hidden connections and layers we might miss.
Exactly. And just so everyone knows, this isn't just for like hardcore lit fans.
Right.
This deep dive is really about those big questions, freedom, power.
Resistance.
Exactly. Things that are just as relevant now as they were back when Atwood wrote the book. But for anyone who needs a refresher, the book takes place in this, well,
Pretty bleak future.
yeah, this dystopian society they call Gilead.
Where women have absolutely zero rights.
Their identities.
Gone. And their roles.
Well,
Completely determined by whether or not they can have children.
it's a world of like really stark contrasts. Atwood uses these color-coded clothes.
Right. It's very visual, yeah. Red for the handmaids, forced into, well,
Sexual servitude,
Yeah.
basically.
yeah. Blue for the wives, green for the Marthas, who are like the domestic servants.
It's all very rigid, this hierarchy.
But the really chilling thing is, Atwood didn't just invent this out of nowhere.
Wait, you're saying it's based on actual history?
Absolutely. Notebook LM actually pointed us this really disturbing passage in the book.
Okay.
It's the ceremony scene.
Oh, right, where the handmaids are.
Yeah, it's basically ritualized rape
Yeah.
disguised as this ceremony for procreation.
One of the most disturbing parts of the book, for sure.
And Notebook LM linked this to historical accounts of the Sabbatai Zivi movement.
Sabotage easy.
Yeah, back in 17th century Turkey, they had these practices where women were exploited.
You mean like forced into sexual rituals under the cover of religion?
Exactly. So it's like a reminder, the oppression in Gilead.
It's not some fantasy.
Right. It's a reflection of disturbing patterns that have actually happened throughout history. Makes you think, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, even before knowing the history, that ceremony scene was just, so unsettling.
Yeah, it really sticks with you.
But knowing it has roots in real events, it's like even more impactful, I think. Makes you wonder, do you think Gilead feels, I don't know, relevant to today's world?
I think a lot of readers are asking themselves that same question.
Yeah.
And it's something Notebook LM picked up on, too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. For example, it highlighted all the current debates around reproductive rights, especially in certain parts of the world where women's bodily autonomy is, well...
Being restricted more and more.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like in Gilead, they're using religion and tradition to justify controlling women, their bodies.
And sadly, we see echoes of that in the real world.
Yeah, not a comfortable thought.
It's not. And Notebook LM helped us connect this theme to another real-world parallel, the rise of authoritarianism. It's happening all over.
In Gilead, it's the government controlling information, limiting free speech.
And using surveillance everywhere to hold on to power. Sound familiar at all?
Definitely. It's like Atwood was predicting the future, almost. But speaking of predictions, is that where the whole AI thing comes in? I'm really curious how Notebook LM actually helps us, unpack the book.
Oh, it does. It does. One thing it's great at is spotting recurring symbols, these motifs,
Okay.
like the motif of birds, the Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, right.
It pulled all these passages where birds clearly represent freedom, something Offord desperately wants throughout the book.
Okay, but can we just back up for a second? What exactly is a motif? I mean, like, I've heard the term.
Of course, of course. It's a recurring element, like an image, symbol, or idea that has symbolic significance.
Okay.
It helps develop the theme of a work. So the birds aren't just random details. They represent Offord's longing for freedom.
Even in that super oppressive setting.
Right. It adds this whole other layer of meaning to the story.
That makes sense. But I gotta be honest, I'm still a little skeptical about the AI thing. Can a computer really grasp, the subtleties of literature, the symbolism?
It's a valid question. But what's interesting is Notebook LM doesn't just give us answers.
Okay.
It points us towards questions, interpretations we might not have thought of on our own.
So it's like a lens helping us focus.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm starting to see how that could be useful, like a really smart study buddy pointing out things you missed. But are we, like, losing our own critical thinking skills by relying on AI? Shouldn't we be doing this work ourselves?
That's a really important point and gets right to the heart of the whole debate about technology and the humanities.
Yeah.
Some folks think AI tools like this could make us less able to think for ourselves.
I can see that.
But I see it more as a collaboration, We're not letting the machine do everything. We're
Right.
using it as a tool to get a better understanding.
So not replacing human thought, but augmenting it.
Exactly. And with The Handmaid's Tale, I think that collab can be really powerful. It helps us explore those complex themes and connect them to, well, the world we're living in right now. Speaking of which, Notebook LM dug up this really interesting observation about the novel. It's about how The Handmaid's Tale can be interpreted through the lens of, get this, class struggle.
Whoa, okay. That's not something I'd considered before. Tell me
What-
more. Class struggle, huh? So how does Notebook LM tie The Handmaid's Tale to that?
Well, it pointed out how Gilead's power structure, it isn't just about controlling women.
Okay.
It's about the elite, staying on top and keeping everyone else down.
So like the commanders, they're all from this privileged class.
Right, and they use the whole theocracy thing to basically cement their power.
Exploit those beneath them?
Exactly. Even the wives, who seem like they have some status,
Yeah.
they're just pawns in the commander's game, ultimately.
And the handmaids and Marthas?
A lot of them were professionals before Gilead. Doctors, lawyers.
Right.
Now they're at the very bottom of this new society.
Makes you think about that passage where Offred's remembering her life before.
Yeah.
She talks about how women were already facing discrimination, at work.
Economic inequality was a problem.
Yeah, like the seeds of Gilead were already there, just waiting.
That's a really sharp observation, And
Wow.
it's something Notebook LM highlighted, too.
Really?
It connected that passage to something Atwood herself said.
Oh, wow.
She said, "The Handmaid's Tale is not an extrapolation from nothing. All of the things I have written about have happened somewhere, sometime."
Whoa. So she's basically saying Gilead isn't this, like, made-up dystopia?
Yeah.
It's reflecting something that could actually happen.
Right. That potential for darkness is already in our societies.
Makes the book even more unsettling.
It really does. And it brings us back to why using AI in literary analysis can be so helpful, I think.
Uh-huh.
Notebook LM, it can highlight those little connections, those echoes between fiction and reality.
Which we might not catch on our own.
Exactly. Helps us see the story in a new way, connected to the bigger picture.
Okay, I'm definitely seeing how Notebook LM can be helpful, even for someone who's, already read the book. It's like having an extra pair of eyes, a different way of looking at things. But what else did it reveal about the story? Did it have anything to say about the characters or, I don't know, the plot?
Actually, there's this really fascinating point Notebook LM brought up about the role of technology in Gilead.
Oh, right. We were talking about how technology can help us understand the book,
Uh-huh.
but it's also a big part of the story itself.
Absolutely. Remember Offred finding that old cassette recorder?
And using it to record her experiences.
It's like this powerful symbol of resistance, right? Using tech to fight back against the oppression.
Yeah.
And Notebook LM picked up on that,
Okay.
analyzed that passage where Offred calls the recorder a weapon. But it also pointed out that technology in Gilead, it's a double-edged sword.
Oh, interesting.
They use it for control, too, and surveillance. The wall with its electric fence.
Constant monitoring.
Yeah, propaganda, censorship.
It's like a twisted version of the technology we use today.
Right. Social media, data
Ouch.
tracking, all that.
It can be used to connect people, empower them.
But also to manipulate, to control.
Exactly. And that's a key takeaway, I think, from this whole deep dive into The Handmaid's Tale with Notebook LM. Technology is a powerful tool,
It all depends on who's wielding it.
and what they choose to do with it.
It makes you think about our own relationship with technology, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Are we using it to, better ourselves, connect with people? Or is it controlling us, taking away our freedoms?
That's the question Atwood wants us to grapple with, and I think Notebook LM just amplifies it. Makes us think critically about the choices we make online, Are we just passively scrolling, or are we engaging? Are we letting algorithms tell us what to think, or are we seeking out different viewpoints?
Wow, this is giving me a lot to think about.
It is, isn't it? And we haven't even gotten to Offred yet. Her journey throughout the story, it's just...
It's so captivating how she goes from this passive observer to someone who's actively resisting. It is. Notebook LM had a lot to say about her. But before we get to Offred, there's one last detail Notebook LM found that I think is really important. It's about the ending of the book. How Offred's fate is kind of left up in the air.
Oh yeah, that always bothered me. I finished the book and I was like, wait, what happens next? Did Notebook LM shed any light on that?
It did, yeah. It's a pretty interesting take, actually. Notebook LM went through those final chapters really carefully. Paying close attention to how Offred's narrating everything, the changes in tone.
Yeah.
And get this, it suggests that maybe, just maybe, the ambiguity is on purpose.
You mean like Atwood did it intentionally?
Yeah, like a way of showing how uncertain things are, even in, real-life fights for freedom.
So it's not just Atwood leaving us hanging.
Right. Notebook LM's point is that, well, not everything ties up neatly in real life either.
True.
A lot of times victories can be temporary, there are setbacks.
And the future, who knows?
Exactly. Even if Offred escaped Gilead, that whole system of oppression, it'd still be there.
So whether she gets out or not, it's not really the point.
It's more about the bigger fight, the fight against Gilead itself.
Right, right.
And that's what makes the ending so powerful, I think. It's not just a, happy ending.
Yeah.
It's forcing us to deal with the fact that the struggle for freedom, it doesn't just end.
We have to keep fighting.
Keep pushing for change.
Yeah.
It demands our attention, our willingness to stand up and say something when we see injustice.
Wow. I'm seeing The Handmaid's Tale in a whole new light, I gotta say. It's not just a dystopian story. It's like a call to action. Makes you realize we can't just sit back and assume everything's gonna be okay.
Exactly. And Notebook LM, I think it really helps drive that point home.
Yeah, it does.
It's not just about finding patterns. It's about understanding, what the story really means.
And how it applies to our lives.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Human interpretation and AI analysis working together.
Powerful combination.
It's not about replacing our own thinking. It's about adding to it, using tech to understand literature, history.
And ourselves. So I guess the big question is, what does all this mean for us? Us sitting here listening, trying to make sense of this crazy world. What's the takeaway from this whole deep dive into The Handmaid's Tale, especially with Notebook LM's help?
I think the biggest thing is, well, being aware. We can't just assume our freedoms will always be there.
Right.
We have to be on guard, protecting our rights, calling out injustice, holding people in power accountable.
And we have to think for ourselves.
Especially now, with so much information, so much of it wrong.
Yeah, we can't just absorb whatever's thrown at us. We have to question everything, find different perspectives.
Use our voices, just like Offred with that recorder.
Powerful image.
It is. And remember, even when things seem really bleak, hope's still there. The human spirit, it's strong. That desire for freedom, it's part of who we are.
That comes through loud and clear in The Handmaid's Tale.
And it's something we need to hold on to, as we figure out our own place in the world.
Great point. Well, we've got something for everyone listening to think about. What signs of resistance do you see around you? What little acts of defiance, of hope, of courage can you bring into your own life? The Handmaid's Tale, yeah, it's a warning, but it's also a reminder that we're capable of incredible things. Keep those questions in mind, and until next time, keep diving deep.